people get convinced far more easily when you speak in their language, and if you tend to use the very literal same words that they use in their day-to-day talk. Read more than me first and then come preach to me about creative. फसल आपकी कैसी है उस पे आपका वैल्यू बनता है ना. So you have to be someone worthy of commanding that sort of a price bracket. Most great marketers have the same skill set. It's a T curve. So you have to be a generalist at everything, and you have to have deep specialization in one thing. But at the end of it, it comes down to the fact that you have to be a very curious person. Intellectual curiosity. Nothing can replace that.
Hey there, welcome to another episode of Marketing Mavericks. Today we have Kartik Johari with us. Kartik is the Vice President of Marketing and Commerce at Nobel Hygiene. He's a fantastic marketer. He's made it into Business World's 40 under 40 list, and he has spent almost a decade building the personal hygiene space in India, which is rapidly growing. I'm really excited to host Kartik today to know a little bit more about his journey, know all things about marketing, and also get a lot of insights into the personal hygiene space. Thanks for your time, Kartik. Welcome.
It's a pleasure, Kavan. Looking forward to a unorthodox, transparent, and honest chat.
Right. You know what? I'm going to start off with maybe an orthodox question, though, which is how did you stumble upon marketing? When is it that first time you felt that, okay, that's what I want to do, that's my career choice, and anything around that would be really helpful?
I mean, as most marketers, I think I first stumbled into it when I was running away from numbers, right? Unfortunately, as most marketers go to realize, marketing is steeped in numbers. So for me, it was not really, at a young age that, I want to be a marketer. It was more a process of elimination, saying, all right, science में तो पल्ले पढ़ने नहीं वाले. I'm like, okay, moving on. I'm like, accounts, and my father is a CA, right? So, and at that point itself, I'd realized that I can't do these 14-hour days. I'm very ADHD. At that time, I suspected. Now I've been tested. I know. I'm like, I can't do this. So again, commerce, then marketing, and um, that was my route. I'm very happy though that this is the area that I've stumbled onto because it's played to a lot of my strengths, and even in terms of creating good communication. I think that's at the core of it because I read a lot, right? So from a very young age, it was always, I love words, I love etymology. So advertising always appealed from a very young age because of the succinctness of the message. There's 30 seconds to get a complex point across, and not even across, to sell, literally. So from a young age, I was always interested in advertising, and then the more and more I started to, get myself siloed into this zone, I realized about the expansiveness of marketing due to a couple of things, and was very happy then the fact that I'm sort of in this field, half as a promoter, half as a marketing specialist myself, and a myriad of other things.
Interesting. So it was like a theory of elimination for you. Uh,
Very much.
but then, when did you decide marketing's what you want to do? What did you study? How did you become an expert in or a domain expert in marketing? I'd love to know more.
I think I'll give credit to my final year of BMS for this. And at the end of the year, you're supposed to do a thesis, right? That black book that you submit. And mine was on experiential marketing, which is a topic that no one had even picked up, right? Half the people in the room didn't even know what it was. And I ended up reading 4 or 5 books for writing the entire thing. And very unlike other students, etc. And I like to type as well. So I sat and that entire 93 pages I've written myself. So it was a very extraordinary exposure, and that sort of opened up my mind to a lot more avenues of marketing. Apart from classically when you think of TV advertising or in those times, just 12, 15 years ago, you think radio and this, that, and holistic. But then experiential marketing was really, really new and really different at that point. How can you, through genuine interactions with end consumers or stakeholders, really communicate value? So that sort of really sparked a lot of things. And I think over this decade and a half journey, I think I've gotten better and better at distilling what genuinely marketing even is. Now we have digital, myriads of digital. Now we have Gen AI, and the space continuously evolves. The marketing as a activity and as a domain keeps evolving every 24 months. So there is some huge tectonic shift, right? But at the core of it, I think it's always remained the same. which is what my personal definition of marketing is. Right? It's communicating value, and it's as simple as that.
Understood. Understood. Why don't you now tell us a little bit about your career? I think a quick background in that. I know you started off at Directi, then you had your own company. Of course, now you've spent almost a decade at Nobel, but you also invest now. So if you can kind of give me, in a nutshell, if you can explain your career trajectory, that'll be awesome.
So like I said, I was after I graduated, I was privileged to get a great job. I mean, I crossed 7 rounds of interviews, but it was a great experience and a great company to work at. Directi and the Turakya brothers, which are the unsung heroes of Indian entrepreneurship. There's a lot of conversation that goes around different ones, but I'd urge anyone to just look up their story. From zero to $1 billion, multiple business units, no debt, no fundraise, organic. So not many firms or stories are like that. And I was very privileged to be a part of the company and have peers and seniors who are veterans of internet infrastructure products. So from a very young age, from my very first job, I sort of got the exposure to the fundamental of what the internet is and how it works. And that knowledge has been, it's been life changing in a lot of different ways. Even though I don't come from science, I have a passion for science. Even though I'm not a technologist or a coder or an engineer, I still have structural understanding of how most technologies work, and I think you need that to be a good marketer. After that,
So,
MBA,
sorry to cut you. This was in 2010, basically.
11ish, yeah,
2011, and you must be just
even
out of college, so 2021.
just out of college,
Okay,
exactly, exactly.
got it.
3 years there, great experience. Boss always said that MBA karna chahiye, MBA karna chahiye. So I was fortunate enough to get into a good school in the US. Great professors. I think CATS is ranked now at 30 globally. Fantastic institute. But even then, of course, I went with the goal of getting an MBA in marketing. By the time I graduated, there was no marketing anywhere. It was more of entrepreneurship and strategy.
Hmm.
And that's when the startup bug sort of bit me.
Hmm.
And over the course of those 3 years, we had 4 different companies, two of which we were trying to run simultaneously. A lot of different interactions, different incubators, so many pitch events which we kept winning, and that winning would sustain us for 3 months, 4 months, etc.
Hmm.
And there is where I figured that if perhaps not marketing, venture capital is definitely where I want to be. And I sort of made it a goal that I'm going to try and include this in my life. And the reasoning again was very simple, that investing, by extension venture capitalism, is at the fulcrum of three very important things. One is technology, which is constantly updating, so you need to know. B is money, because let's be honest, money runs the world. And C is smart, genuine people who are driven, who are methodical, who are disciplined, and who are trying to affect some sort of change in the world through their own respective hard work. So at the confluence of this, of money, of knowledge, and of people, I think this was the right place to start to thrive. So unfortunately, my US story didn't really work out very well. I wish I had a couple of million in the bank before I came back. But I came back nevertheless, was privileged to have a platform to continue to learn at and to keep adding value to, which is what I've been doing for the past 9.5 years since the day I landed. And it's been a tremendous journey all across, right? And about 4 or 5 years ago is when I got into investing from a seed investing perspective, and it was more from learning. Think that, at least Kartik, 10, 20, 30, 40 pitches a year. See what's happening out there. If anything sparks, then you figure the money and you see how you can invest in. Fortunately, things have been good. God has been kind. I think we've built a very nice portfolio of industry agnostic 25 plus companies that we've invested in so far. So, again, lots of learning. Clearly, as you can see, I'm very anal about learning all the
Understood. That's very evident. But thanks for taking us through that. That brings me to another question. Um, as someone, I did BMM, and
time.
there was a lot of questions around, uh, a lot of aspiring marketers trying to figure out how to plan their studies. Um, some of them heard job chalu kar lo, learn on the job. Some heard ki nahi, you go to MBA, you have to do MBA. Some are like, do an MBA only if it's from a good college, or don't do one. Otherwise, it's pointless. So I wanted your point of view. I think you've gone to a top college in Bombay, you've gone to a top MBA college abroad. If a 20 year old or a 19-year-old probably is listening to this, how can they plan their education?
So I've advised dozens of students for this, including my own family, right? There are three instances where, on an essay review, I've gotten people to change their educational plans itself. And that you're not ready now, take 3 more years. To your last point, Kavan, I think I very much agree. And this was most succinctly put to me by a family friend who, from a very young age, was at NTU in Singapore, right? A genius individual. And when I met him, he said that, and since then, oh, MBA karna, MBA karna. And he said, what does MBA stand for? I said, Masters of Business Administration. I know that much. He said, if you've not done any business, if you've not handled any team, if you've not administered anything, then what are you going to go do your masters in? And that really drove the point home for me. From for my own sake, my internal benchmark was minimum 3 years, which I sort of just did, and then I went for my MBA. But for all people listening now, if you're young, I would definitely advise you nothing less than 4 years, 5 years. Have one jump minimum. Try to see two industries at the very least, and that's when you go in for an MBA, and then you get some sort of value out of it. It's very true that at the end of it, most MBA knowledge is sort of similar. Your network matters the most. That means it's very important for you to get to the right university. So your peers and your professors are extraordinary. So you learn and you grow. And that at the core of it is what most people sort of lose track of. Salaries are a function of your capability. At the root of it, this is reality. So if you think you're going to be at a high frangle place and you get a good MBA or an MBA is enough to get you a good salary, um, not really. That's not really the case anymore, right? I've had the privilege of being on teams with people who are 10, 12 years my senior, who've managed multi-million dollar portfolios, who were looking at a $30 million organization. And I had just gone for my MBA, 3 years working at one company, not having any clue of how any kind of business environment works. So, to my benefit, again, like I read a lot and I had a very open mind. And like I said, right, for me, as long as I'm learning, I don't really care about anything else. But there are a lot of other people who are sort of very disillusioned with the entire process, right? Who put so much energy into the interview process, into the campus placements, and at the end of it, you know, फसल आपकी कैसी है उस पे आपका वैल्यू बनता है ना सो यू हैव टू बी समवन वर्दी ऑफ कमांडिंग दैट सॉर्ट ऑफ अ प्राइस ब्रैकेट nothing else, no degree can do that for you. And for that, for anyone who's planning any sort of career in marketing or marketing specifically, but even generally, right, a few things that I always throw out, right? One is you have to read a lot. Every idea, and especially as a marketer, it comes out of here. So the more fertile this is, the better is your crop, right? And your fertility of your mental construct depends on what you're putting into it. So if your mental diet consists of the equivalent of fast food, obviously you're not going to be in a position that you're going to sprout very many ideas. My go-to example for this, Kavan, is actually a very beautiful ad by Gatorade. It's called The Running Man. Have you seen it?
No.
So I urge you to see it, and I urge anyone listening to see that ad.
Mhm.
And my question is that in your current mental construct, are you even capable of conceptualizing something like this? Right? To understand how technology works, to understand how frames per second works, to get water drops simulated and falling in a frame-wise picture and captured at the same time to create a running movie from it. It's very first principle fundamental knowledge. The ad itself is superb, but for me, it is the true genius of the person who thought up of it, and said that all right, let's make a Running Man interpretation from actually inspired from Bruce Lee's line, like flow be like water. We created a water man, and how amazing is that? So how many of us have had a genuinely original idea? How many of us have the chance to then take that idea and make something real out of it? So it's a long shot, right? So at the end of it, you have to keep thinking, you have to keep reading, you have to be curious, right? Especially about if you want to get into marketing. Sure, there are some other specifics that I could tell you, that you have to get comfy with Excel, you try and understand research methodologies from a young age, get really, really good at psychology, right? But at the end of it, it comes down to the fact that you have to be a very curious person. Um, most great marketers have the same skill set, it's a T curve. So you have to be a generalist at everything, and you have to have deep specialization in one thing, which is why they call it a tree framework. The world is brutal, man. India specifically is so competitive. The more you go out and the more you interact with multicultural teams, you see, you work with Germans, you work with the Chinese, you work with the Japs. Everyone's extraordinary and everyone's trying to do so much. So thus that T-shaped curve matters even more. And at the end of it, you have to be curious. You have to be curious about everything from the formulation of detergent and dish soap all the way to how video content and video production works. You have to be curious about how a static image traverses the World Wide Web and then becomes viral, and what sort of engagement parameters are needed to push it to that level and to those heights. You have to be curious about everything. And if you're not an inherently curious person, I think it's going to be very tough for you to, work as a marketer. Sure, you may make good money. Sure, you'll get to a certain point, but to be the best in class, not really.
Brilliant, Kartik. I think I fully agree with you here. I'm someone who also started very young, so I think if you are able to get your hands dirty by being curious, there's nothing else will teach you more than that. And then whatever you do in life, you'll have just so much more perspective on everything you learn, everything you observe, right? Than just being like, okay, it's theory for me now, and I can't relate, I can't take that home. So I fully agree with you.
No,
Uh,
well said, man. And
yeah.
like you say, exposure trumps everything. And I'm very jealous of the position that you're in. You get to interact with the best of the best from the design community. You get to learn from all of them. You can pick up a phone and call most of them. It's an extraordinary position to be in. So kudos.
Thank you so much. I'll move on to my next question now. And I think maybe similar to what you said. So, um, you've had a certain opinion on building in-house and building creative in-house specifically.
Yeah,
And since we have been helping brands actually extend their in-house teams or maybe replace their in-house teams with on-demand or freelance talent. I wanted to know from you about generally how you tackle the cons of having an in-house team. What I'll do is I have about three potential cons I foresee. Maybe I'll
sure.
ask you one by one and you can directly kind of answer them. So,
Absolutely.
in my observation, the first thing which I wanted to say is while you can build in-house, you are competing with, let's say, something like an agency who has entire career progression of a creative sorted. Like you'll have a Piyush Pandey to a Prasoon Joshi right at the top, to a lot of hierarchy of expert folks who you can learn from. So if you're a young designer and you want to become really good, an agency is a really good place to be. Maybe towards the end, maybe brand side is a jump you make. So how do you compete with that if I'm a marketer and I want to build an in-house team? Because I think a lot of people want to do that today. I'm with you. How do I compete with that?
Firstly, let me throw in the asterisk that I would venture 60% of all the people in creative agencies' ultimate game plan is to get to brand side, right? So there is some value here, right? Money aside, now I'll come to the other point, right? Money is one, which, to be very frank, I think if your skill set is strong, a brand will pay you more than an agency. I've seen this across 100 different hiring roles in interviews that I've, right? So leaving that outside, there is vast troves of talent, multi-dimensional talent within every corporate that works, right? I think we can't do it the disservice of saying that there is a certain type of talent which is available at agencies, right? There are swaths of thinking that are left out. So if you're a designer, absolutely. You've picked a niche, so you want to continue working at a design agency, you want to keep working from the best, get a couple of good mentors, see art, read art books, and get better at it. But the role of a designer is so much in the entire construct of an agency, right? Where you have everyone from planners, account managers, media professionals, and producers to creative directors.
Right.
Um, each one of them will have so much more to contribute and to learn from when you join a brand site. I've had two experiences in my own team. Both of the employees who are not with me anymore, but they're very close to me and they're very beloved. They've both of them came from top tier digital agencies, and I'll quote one of them because a week into his job, he said, "Kartik, I've pulled 2:30 a.m.s, etc. when I'm in my agency days." He's like, but I think in a week, the amount of work that I have gotten done without staying over late, I think I'm now understanding what real work is. Now that is the point, right? And there is so much more to advertising and marketing than just sitting and designing or copy. I think that is the biggest misnomer that you have to take away from people, right? There is someone sitting in Big Bazaar's team whose entire job in marketing is to analyze 100 types of wheats and to understand different wheat products and to look at supply inputs and to look at pricing inputs and wholesale prices. Like that's a very vital part of marketing,
Right.
but that's not design. So design is the niche. Most people mistake marketing being this niche, but marketing is so much more all encompassing. And all of the people on my team and the in-house team that I'm very proud of that I've built have continuously benefited from the multi-dimensional experience that an organization offers. Everything from my people who have learned how to hire people in costing constraints, who have understood pricing implications, who have spent time in the field doing field visits. Those things you don't do at an agency.
I think my takeaway here is that the sell really is that you get a holistic understanding of the brand and you get it like literally at the horse's mouth. Because I think one thing happens in an agency is certain kind of people talk to the client, certain kind of people execute, certain kind of people pass the parcel. So there's a lot of translation,
Correct.
loss in translation,
Correct.
which happens.
You're
But
very siloed, at an
correct,
agency, and that's very,
correct,
very put. So
correct.
to come here is where you get a true, one finger in each pie sort of approach.
Uh, my next question on this point is how does the math work out? A lot of times brands generally feel that overall, over a long time period, it's cheaper to, outsource than to insource because you have to employ them, pay hiring costs, pay infrastructure costs, pay upskilling costs, and other employee career laddering cost, as I put it. So how does the math work out? How do you tackle that? Wanted to know that.
I think if you keep my position apart, which is a CMO traditionally, the rest of the structure falls into place really economically, right? Like I said, agencies are not the best paymasters.
Right.
So a brand will give you a healthier balance. A brand will most likely pay you more. And at that price point, apart from the head, I think the rest of the team really balances and costs maybe 50, 60% of a top tier agency,
Oh, wow.
and you have specific input for that price. You don't have a level, which again, to be honest, there are what, 200, 300 brands in the country who are being serviced by the A plus level teams.
Mm.
Everyone else gets the B team or the C team, etc. Right? And they are juggling many brands and many clients. For half of that price, you can build a B plus or a A minus level team, nurture all of them to be an A plus level team, while they are giving your brands a whole and soul undivided focus. This is one of the reasons why, because we manage three brands, right? I never wanted to keep the same, even a digital agency on all my brands. Because then the guys are coming into the agency office every day saying, all right, today let me think about Friends Adult Diapers. Okay, tomorrow I'll think about Rio. Maybe sometime later in the week we'll do some brainstorming on Teddy. That's not how it's going to work. Every day you have to think about everything and all the brands. And that's what my in house team does, and they excel at it. So even now, I have three graphic designers, one animator, one junior copyright, not even a copyright, junior content creation specialist, because Damien now does everything from video to writing copy. I had one intern who was writing exclusively content for online uses and ORM. Um, we have our own green room. We have our own editor. So and I'm still at half the price I paid my agency. So, I think the math works out.
Fantastic. I think that's really insightful personally for me also. And
Hmm.
and I'd love to talk more on that, but for the sake of time, I'm going to the next last point on this topic, which is what happens in times of scale, yeah, where there's a surge, maybe there is World Cup, Diwali, or for some reason you need to put out 100 products on your A plus. What happens when you have a crunch time? Because the advantage of an agency is that they'll get more hands on deck, from other areas. How do you tackle such issues with an in-house team?
There are 2 points to this. One is I don't think in marketing there ever truly is a surge, right? If there's a World Cup, 6 months before that the World Cup is happening. If you need to get 100 ASINs listed on Amazon, you know that well in advance because 3 months before the product team would have told you that all of this is coming to you. This is the go live date. So half of it is just being prepared, right? And the other half is when there is a surge or when internal talent drops out or when there is a gap in the team. I think there is a plethora of freelancers available and specialists who are there in the market now who you can work with and get the same thing done, right? You can use multiple stopgap measures to augment your core team. And there are certain functions which you'll never be able to take internally. For me, one of those remains market research, right? And no matter how big my team gets or how strong the need for regular research is felt, I think it's really expensive and perhaps counterintuitive to try and build a research expertise internally. So you always have a panel, right? I have three go-to market research companies. I have a couple of go-to animators who are freelancers, editors, graphic designers if I need them in a pinch. So my backup roster is always ready in case I ever need to. And that's how you manage a surge, so as to say. But technically, being prepared for it is half the battle, right?
I think well put, huh? I'm going to steal this for one of my sales calls. That yeah, it's not really a surge because you're well. It's like a season for us, right? We know what's coming when well
Absolutely.
in advance. So that's
Absolutely.
that's a very good point.
Have you come across a surge, Kavan, yourself? Like a genuine surge that if you think back, you're like, all right, 90 days before, I had no idea this is going to break down.
I think for me, my business is a little bit different. For us, surges come when we sign in three companies together, right? So
Correct.
for us, it comes more from that point of view, less for marketing indie follow as a brand, because is that
Mm.
you're right. We're pretty aware what happens when, like right now, we've got our World Cup and Diwali bandwidth crunch content
Correct.
out. Well, and it was planned well before. So
Correct.
I fully agree with that point. Yeah.
And another facet of this thing is it's not like agencies have ready rosters of people they're just waiting to throw onto your brand. Try and debate with an agency saying, "नहीं मेरे को 2 हफ्ते में I want a script ready after 2-3 different iterations." There's a massive debate right there. But good content takes its time. You can't really force fit everything, no matter how many people you throw at.
Absolutely. I think your point of uh, dedicated focus is important because when they say एक महीना लगेगा, they're like, अरे, I have to tell 30 brands एक महीना लगेगा so I can deliver to them. But I'll kind of move away now from this and I want to unpack personal hygiene. And I'm going to say what I'm going to say because I've personally seen you talk a lot about that, which is
Mm.
personal hygiene is not sexy. It's something you've mentioned quite often on your LinkedIn. So I'm just curious, right? Like how how and why that seemed like something you want to deep dive into.
Mm.
And more than anything, I think uh, can you give us a bird's eye perspective? Because when I personally see personal hygiene, I have one, two brands in my mind. Mostly it's for babies and women, right? The kind of portfolio you have, and I think you spoke a lot about how rapidly it's growing. If you can unpack that for all the listeners, that'll be awesome.
So we at Nobel Hygiene have three brands: Friends Adult Diapers, which is the country's leading adult diaper brand; Market Creator and Market Leader. We have India's largest baby diaper brand, Teddy, and we have a very sharp and fast-growing sanitary hygiene brand called Rio. Right? I urge all of you to check out their social handles. Teddy's is still in the work, but Rio and Friends are very, very active. And to sort of bring it back, right? to personal hygiene as a category. And that unsexy post is I think I put that up like 4.5 years ago. And the context behind it was that, I was always jelly of other sexy categories, as are most people. You have misnomers, you're like marketing. And I hate, again, but when you ask people to quote great marketing examples, everyone quotes an Apple or a Nike or a Sony or whatnot. But get away from it. There's like 30 other things. And what I would like to say is that I'm deeply happy and privileged to be in personal hygiene now at this point in time. And there are a couple of factual reasons for it, right? One is simply because the future is so bright, right? A lot of personal hygiene growth across categories is going to come when, you're going to hit a disposable income threshold in India of about 3,000 USD. Currently, India is about 1,800. So we have a long way to go before the category even unlocks and, gets that inflection point in the hockey stick curve.
Right.
So there is so much growth there, right? So that is one very important. Two is that we're in the business of products that give genuine value, right? And those come from two things. One is that this is science based. Now, I love that about personal health, right? If to call out one of our leading baby diaper global competitors, everything is factual, science based, well researched, well tested with consumer testimonials, right? You can't do that for a bourbon biscuit. Taste is so subjective. You can't do that for a Balaji wafers, right? What are you going to come back with saying that, oh, my salt sugar ratio and content per 100 grams of serving is this much compared to that? But you look at a Reckitt or a Lifebuoy ad, it is inherently science based. And that gives you a very strong foundation to try and build communications off and to build brands out of. And secondly, on this, right, I am I am not manufacturing need. Like I said, every product genuinely helps people. So at the end of it, with adult diapers, we've seen so many consumer stories and how much value the product makes in people's homes. Even if my CTC had one more zero behind it, if I was in the business of wheat or cola or biscuits, I don't think we'd be half as motivated to come in every day. But when you see that product create that kind of value, and then at the end of it, you know that the growth is still not hit. At the end of it, you know that no one can simply just come and displace you with a new flavor of something. This is very methodical and very fact based. The fact that I don't have to manufacture a need, which I would venture a lot of cola brands or a fashion brand, even to some level. Cola is even below fashion because humans are such visual creatures that fashion is inherently something that we notice. But you don't need to have sugary pop drinks or chocolate. And I say that as an addict of Pepsi and of fucking and crackle. It's always there on my desk. So, but these are not needed products. An adult diaper, a sanitary napkin, a baby diaper, a hand wash, a soap, a shampoo. These are needed products from a hygiene perspective, which is why my deep love and my deep respect for personal hygiene. And I'm very, very happy that I got into this space. Perhaps I'd be stressing a lot harder if I was in some other business trying to sell luggage bags, But I don't have to stress to do that. I don't have to manufacture need. I just have to make a great product and then communicate that really well.
Brilliant. No, I mean, kudos to you and the entire team there. My grandfather, who's no more, actually used to be a customer, and I remember. I think I don't know exactly the campaign, but I remember my father convincing my grandfather through one of your ads only, which was pretty hilarious. I think
Wow.
somebody was pouring something,
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
"Arey,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
they had a good laugh about it because, he was 90, was pretty like, I don't want to wear this, it's so weird. But we kind of convinced him. And that brings me to the next question, right? Which is, it's such a, I mean, especially your flagship, I think it's your flagship product, right? The adult diapers.
Yeah.
You, it's a new category. And the problem with the new category for the first time is you have no benchmarks. You have to really create the playbook yourself. So, uh, I've personally experienced, my grandfather being extremely like, no, no, I don't want to wear it. So there's a lot of like stigma attached to it.
Correct.
Sometimes would also educate them. So what do you do? What's been Noble Hygiene's playbook of educating them versus destigmatizing it? I would love to know more.
I think it's two sides of the same coin, right? you destigmatize something by throwing a spotlight on it and by educating people about it. Very happy to note that our commercials got this kind of a response, which is very much the intended response, right? That the caretaker is the one convincing the sufferer slash patient and pushing the product into the adoption curve, and research backed completely. And again, my long time partner creative agency is the one who came up with that very, very short concept of 20 seconders and pouring, because we always kept coming back to product veracity. Like, you show the fact that it works, everything else comes later. And even with both our creators, we've shown the diaper up front and central from the perspective of destigmatizing it, right? Because there is so much in the brain saying, yo, kya hai, kaise dikhega, how do I wear it, this, that. Like, show it. That's the easiest way to sort of remove the clutter from people's brains. But it's the same thing. I think one of the reasons why, and we've been sort of trying to educate the market about adult diapers for the past 20 years. It's almost 2 decades now. I think research is invaluable, and quoting consumers speak is very important, right? You convince people get convinced far more easily when you speak in their language, and if you tend to use the very literal same words that they use in their day-to-day talk, I think the message goes home much faster and much easier, right? Now, do we can't really affect this, Kaman. I don't know what time frame is appropriate. So because this is such a susupoti issue, right? And it's very much ingrained in us as humans. As a man, what is one of the worst things you can insult another man? By saying ki tera pant gila ho gaya, right? It's a question on your masculinity. So I don't think I can unpack this. I don't think any ad can unpack this in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Certain generational shifts are needed for a message to truly be imbibed as a part of pop culture and as a part of the new norm. I mean, sanitary napkin hygiene in its own self, even though we've made tremendous strides in progress, right? 70% of the country still very much uses cloth. They're far away from using sanitary napkins, and this is no longer an economic issue, right? Most people tend to think that, oh, the pricing is so high, we need cheaper products. No, we don't. India has the cheapest sanitary napkins anywhere in the world. What is still stopping a majority of the country's women from using the product, right? It's all socio-cultural, and it's going to take its own time to unpack. And the more brands that speak about this in an honest manner with all of their consumers, the faster we can hope to affect some sort of a permanent change.
Right. I think you've been pretty vocal about the fact that during your research, the user is the biggest roadblock to the usage, and that's a really tricky situation to be in. I think barring babies, other two products have that stigma attached.
Very much.
So my takeaway here would be is that what's worked for you, like you said, is to actually show the product that it actually works.
Yes.
Have the users be proud, and then probably have good KOLs also be proud while using this. And I think that's worked pretty well for you.
100%. 100%. We are here because of our consumers. We are privileged that with friends, especially, we've had consumers who've been with us for 18 years non-stop. And it's a very great category to be in because it's a daily consumable item, right? And it's personal hygiene. So if you're going to get close to it, you'll experiment with another flavor of biscuit. You'll try another shampoo or a soap. But an adult diaper, once you're set, you're not going to move. So quality trumps everything, which is again why personal hygiene is awesome. It's based in science. But yeah, it's making any taboo topic conversational even takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of courage, and kudos to stories such as the one which you described in your own home. Courage is so innate. I don't think we could have said anything to convince your father that this is the right fight to have in the house. All we can do is, give that one spark and that springboard. Saying, agar aapko jhagadna hai, you use this messaging as a fulcrum point and you start to fight. But can we convince someone who's completely roadblocked to say that go adopt this and go work with this? It's going to be hard, and it's going to take a long time.
My last question on this, this section of personal hygiene is that I've seen that you folks have been growing rapidly. Revenues are rising. As you said, the category is rising. Spends of the consumer are going to rise. We're also going to get more and more people are going to get older in India as the year passes. I mean, it checks a lot of marks to build an incredible business, right? This is a great category. I'm talking about adult diapers also specifically.
Yep.
Why don't we see other players, as much as, let's say, washing hands, or me probably, going and creating diapers for babies? Why is that the case? Is it the stigma, or what is the problem?
I don't think stigma enters into a monetary equation.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think this is the time where I've never seen the category more alive and vibrant with competition than what I see today,
Okay.
right? Over my past 9.5, 10 years.
Okay.
But not as much as other categories, and definitely it won't even expand that fast because we have an inherent advantage in terms of manufacturing, right? That's a strong moat. My rule of thumb comparison is that you have 550 plus manufacturers of sanitary napkins in the country. For adult diapers, you have less than 10. That is a reflection of the complexity of the products, from everything from a multi-million dollar machine, which is big, to working with 15, 16 highly specialized raw materials, to a very fast-paced, almost autonomous manufacturing process at high speeds. Not many people can do this. Which is why if you look at Pampers as a baby diaper brand, because the same variabilities and inherent challenges in manufacturing apply to baby diapers as well. Pampers is P&G's golden brand globally. Nowhere in the world does P&G outsource its production of Pampers. It's all in-house. And that's the case for us as well, for Teddy. That's the case for Friends as well. So it's not the easiest product to make. It's very deceptively simple looking. And I think that's one of the reasons why, as intense as the competition is at this point in time, you're never going to reach a state where every new startup every 6 months is blossoming with its own blend of products, like how you see in the shallower side of personal care and personal hygiene. When you think of lotions or creams or hair oils and whatnot, it's so easy to get that made from a contract manufacturer, not diapers, and that's going to be a challenge.
Interesting. I think that's a great insight, right? Like barrier to entry is high generally because of the infra. It's not as easy to be like, "हाँ, चलो बना के दो, let's start it." I'll move towards the end of our conversation now, and let's move towards, I guess, the frontier of marketing or creative production, if you can say. And again, you've spoken about this quite a bit, which is Gen AI. Gen AI is like right now the hot blockchain or NFTs maybe 2-3 years ago. So everybody's talking about it, and this time it means really meaningful and significant. And it's not like perceived value or something fake. I can actually open 50 tools, tell it to make a pitch deck for me, and it'll do it. It'll do it pretty well. So I wanted your opinion on this, right? Where maybe let me give you a nuanced question. It's easy to ask, hey, what's the future of Gen AI? But I'll tell you as a marketer what I want to know. I fundamentally believe that marketers are very busy, and creative production is a component of that.
Indeed.
Um, there's a lot you have to do, and you've unpacked that just some time ago. Now that Gen AI is coming, and a lot of people are saying creative people ka job thoda we'll have to be careful. Does that mean that now marketers also need to become producers, because there is no friction for you to become a creative designer, right? You don't have to learn Photoshop. You don't have to learn this thing. You need to have a good brief. That's exactly what marketers are great at, right? They can put in the right insight, the right brief, and something awesome will come out. So how can marketers prep themselves up with Gen AI than creative people? I want to know that from you.
There are a lot of interesting avenues, right? I think generative AI is a subset of LLMs, large learning models,
Right.
and to use LLMs in a multitude of ways is what is truly important, right? I'm the very famous saying now, and I'm a huge proponent of it, is that Gen AI is not going to steal your job. A guy using Gen AI is going to steal your job.
Right.
So you're going to have to get very fluent in the tools that are available to you now, right? It's like war. Suddenly the underlying warfare has changed. Till now you're fighting with swords and shields. Now some guys have entered with handguns. Now either you can hold on to your swords and shields and say this is how I've always done it and I've always won this way, you're gonna die.
Right.
So the clear thing is to get very familiar and conversant with all the tools that are available in the market. I have interviewed people in marketing, and when I asked them what is the most extraordinary thing when ChatGPT truly, blew your mind, I'm very sad to say that it's like 60% of them said, "Sir, I have not used ChatGPT." And then what are you doing in marketing? This is the first point, Kavan, that we spoke. Intellectual curiosity. Nothing can replace that. So all the tools are free. What stops you from going on Lexica and just looking through an entire visual gallery of Midjourney?
Right.
There are databases you can go and search through. You don't even need to go and create or write your own prompts. How
Correct.
many of marketers have done the experimentation on prompt generation themselves if they want to get into genuine Gen AI? And now, where are the uses of it? There are myriads, from normal image stuff which you can use in your decks, which you can use to convey points better when you're pitching to your stakeholders about certain important things. From other models that are available where you can throw an Excel in it, you can work with it to automatically have it crunch ratios for you, to pull out insights for you. How many of them have tried that? There are other simpler tools for recording meetings, for transcribing things, even something like Loom, which I've been the biggest fan of, which Atlassian just ended up buying like 5 days ago for almost $1 billion, right? What a fantastic tool. Now, I told my creative agency 18 months ago that you all should be the first ones to start using Loom.
Correct.
Because why are you inserting this another layer of text between thought and communication? It's a subjective business that you're in. So either keep your bar for written communication so high that you can really effectively write and get your point across in a succinct, sharp manner, or just use Loom and communicate normally, like a normal person. You can do that at the very least. Again, no one tried. That to me is the major shame. So I would urge anyone who's listening to go look at multiple repositories. Right? Hold on, I have a website open which is this Futurepedia, which is the largest AI tools directory. Go look at all the tools that exist. Go figure and pick the top three from each of the different categories, And where all can this help in marketing? Everywhere. You don't have to waste time now on drafting long mails for trade schemes, etc. You can literally sit on ChatGPT and ask it to brainstorm like 3, 4 different kinds of trade schemes or incentive programs that you can be running.
Right.
Apart from all of this, is still coming down to you as a marketer using it, and then if you're in a senior manager position, enabling your team to use it. That is again where that leap sort of breaks down. Most people are so terrible about using the tools for their own right. Forget about getting their teams to use it.
Correct.
I was urging my team. I was one of the first people to get DALI access like 1.5 years ago when it first launched. And the first thing I did was call my graphic designers into my room and say, punch what you want to create. And their minds were blown away. And we genuinely sat and we entered like a 60-word prompt on an adult diaper pack. And my designers fell out of their chair. Because I'm like, all you need to do now on this render is replace this cartoon image of a senior couple with an Indian senior couple. This is 95% of working pack design. And they were blown away. And I'm not even talking about the other productivity enhancement tools, about the Excel based tools, and about whatnot which is available for you to truly make your life easy. One of the first things I did was when Firefly and Adobe launched, I made sure that my graphic designers got it.
Right.
Work smarter, don't work hard. And that, at the end of it, is a beautiful summation for what AI Gen and LLMs are doing right now. It's enabling you to work smarter.
I think what you said towards the start, right, which is if the only threat marketers and designers have is not AI, but people who know AI. So my last question, Karthik, to you on that note is, I'll tell you right where I'm confused, or rather where I would really value your opinion is, now that content creation is so democratized, uh, do you see marketing and marketing design merging into one, or do you feel that they will remain separate? Another way to ask you is, hey, there's a designer who knows AI very well, there's a marketer who knows AI very well, they both can create. Who will you trust more?
Designer. They're not going to merge anytime soon.
Why
Because,
would you say that?
like we discussed, marketing is a myriad of different activities brought together to communicate value, right? Design is the one visual medium from which you can communicate value. You think a good designer can design a great radio or an audio ad that you need to play on Geo or you need to play on Spotify? Not really. I think a designer has the right kind of skill set to go and work out a new pricing strategy or a route to market for a new launch that you have. or to innovate on a new packaging construct, whether in shape or material or both. No, right? Everyone has their own roles to play, and that is forever going to be true.
Right.
As easy as the tools have made it, it still takes a designer's mind to bring that final level of finesse out in everything. You
Correct.
know,
Correct.
so I don't think anyone is going to get replaced as easily as that.
Awesome, Karthik. I think that was the last question and a little bit of a relief for me and my business. So thank you so much. The time just went by. I just realized it's been an hour almost.
Now, yeah.
Thank you so much for all the inputs, and for everybody who kind of stay tuned so far. I hope you guys also enjoyed and do check out this space for the next one very soon. Once again, thanks, Karthik. Have a great day.
Cheers. Thank you, Kawan. Thanks to everyone. Have a good day.